so what I'm doing here is like, how can we disrupt that industry? Because here's the thing: if you keep paying an agency, the moment you stop paying them, they walk away with the relationships.
Well, hello, and welcome to another edition of the E-commerce Evolution Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Curry, CEO of OMG Commerce. And today we're talking about a topic that I don't believe we've ever discussed on the podcast before, but it has tons of potential, and I believe it's a missed opportunity for you, and that is PR, getting free press for your brand, for your product launches, and how you can leverage all of that to your benefit. Now, as you know, listening into the pod, I am a paid ads guy. I love YouTube. I love Google. I love Meta, Amazon. All of that works. All that is critical. But the best brands I know, the brands that truly scale and the brands that maintain that growth always have something other than paid ads working for them. It's either organic rankings or it's virality and lots of people just naturally talking about them, or it's PR. And so can't wait to dive into this topic. I have with me Gloria Chow from Gloria Chow PR and the host of Small Business PR Podcast. She's a wealth of knowledge. She's got a unique story, and she's going to show you how to leverage PR for growth for your brand. And so with that, Gloria Chow, ladies and gentlemen, Gloria, how's it going? And welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's good. It's getting cold here in Brooklyn. So, the seasons are changing.
I love it. I appreciate all seasons now. I've kind of like, hey, let's enjoy every aspect of life. Don't like it as much when it's 100 degrees in the Midwest and humid. Not my fave. But dude, when it starts to cool off, I just get fired up. I got more energy. I feel more alive. So, yep, I'm here for it. And you're in Brooklyn, one of my favorite spots. I'll actually be there in a few weeks. But what do you love so much about Brooklyn? And are you a longtime Brooklyn resident?
So I'm actually from LA. I was born and raised in LA. I also grew up a little bit in Beijing, where my mom lives, so I speak Chinese. I've been in New York now for about 10 years on and off. Interestingly enough, previously to this, I was a U.S. diplomat. So I worked abroad in Canada and also 1 year in Washington, D.C. But I love New York. It's my soul home. It's not the highest quality of life. We all know that. But the diversity here is like unmatched. And I love it. I don't think it's our forever home. My husband's from Italy, so I think eventually we'll move to Europe. But we got a few good years left here.
It's great. Yeah, the energy, the cultural diversity, the restaurants, the views, like so many cool things that New York has going for it. So let's just quickly make the New York LA comparison. You prefer New York over LA, and if so, why?
100%. Well, first of all, I don't like driving at all. So that's a no for me. I love biking and walking. So just from that perspective, New York all the way.
Perfect. So we're going to dive into PR, and you got some very practical tips and advice for retail brands, e-commerce brands, omni-channel brands on how to leverage PR. Super excited about that. But I'm curious, how does one go from U.S. diplomat to PR rock star? How do you make that transition?
It's a very untraditional thing. So I actually never worked a day in my life in any PR or marketing agency. And that's very unheard of. And so when I was in government, I always wanted to switch into communications. I was writing speeches for the ambassador, and I just love to see my friends win. I always say that in my previous life, I was like that hip hop MC, like hyping everyone up. I just love hyping my friends up. And so I applied for I kid you not, 1,000 jobs in PR firms. And they all said, your experience is interesting, but we're really looking for someone with that traditional agency background. And so immediately
nobody saw the ability to make that leap. It was not computing for the hiring managers.
And I realized wow, this is an industry that is so not narrow-minded, but very gate-kept, very traditional, very kind of insiders, cool kids club. You're either in the club or you're not. And so as someone who was never in the club, I had to literally, I got my first client, and he's like, we're a small fintech. I had no idea what that was. I didn't study finance. And he's like, if you can get us on CNBC and New York Times and Wall Street Journal, we'll pay you a couple $100. And first of all, no PR person would do guaranteed features, but I had to start somewhere. Sure. So I paid my dues, and I didn't. So I literally sat with the engineers looking at just data, and I'm not a numbers person. I'm an Asian that's bad at math, trying to figure out what is the best story that I can pitch. And then I didn't have any contacts. So I didn't have like journalists and I'm like, hey, buddy. Right. And so I had to, I kid you not, dial zero from the operator by Googling New York Times newsroom.
Yep.
And with my shaky hands and my sweaty palms, I had to practice cold pitching from the operator and to get them to stay on the phone with me until the producer or the editor. And I think through doing that thousands of times and just, emails, like that cold pitching made me see patterns on what worked and what didn't. I ended up getting my clients featured on everything, like New York Times, Forbes, Wall Street Journal, CNBC, but and then I turned it into a framework. And so now my whole thing is, you know what? Like, yes, the industry is gate kept, but there absolutely is a way to cold pitch and journalists want to hear from the founder directly.
Right.
So how can we implement that as a system? And so that's what I teach now in my program.
I love that so much because I really believe doing things like that, where you're pitching on the phone live, you're getting rejected, you're battling that, you're trying to keep people on the phone. I think that's like a master's degree or more, in PR, because a lot of people that got the PR degrees never did that and they never learned it. My son is selling door to door. He's selling solar, residential solar. And I told him, like, hey, this is a grind and maybe it's an untraditional path, or non-traditional path, but you will learn sales in a far different way than somebody who's just had formal training. And so, big believer in just getting out there and doing it.
Yeah, 100%.
So very cool. I do have just one question that I'm kind of curious about. So you're a speechwriter for the ambassador. What's that like? Are you listening and you're like, man, you totally butchered that line. That is not the inflection I meant for that piece, or you're like, would you just stick to the script because what I wrote is beautiful? Well, what's that like, hearing someone deliver your speech?
Yeah. So, it's very like in the bureaucracy, there's many different layers. So I didn't write all of his speeches. It depended on the event. And I was given an opportunity to write a few of those speeches. Now, obviously, because it's very bureaucratic, there are many different people involved all the time and it moved very slowly. So it wasn't like what I wrote was what was delivered, right? There's like so many other layers to it. But it was probably one of the more fun parts of my job, doing the external communications. And that's really what I love and is my natural habitat. I just didn't get to do a lot of it, right? Because like when you start, you have to kind of stay in your lane. And I realized like very quickly that I'm just not made to be a bureaucrat. I'm more of a creative entrepreneur. And so that's why I gave up my pension and a 25-year career that would have, pretty much set me up for life to pursue something else. I moved back home, got on unemployment and kind of like restarted everything after killing my ego.
That is the true entrepreneurial vibe and spirit there. Just cutting that loose. Who cares if I lose the pension and other things? I got to chart my own course and do my own thing. So that's fantastic. Well, as we kind of dive in here, what are some things about PR that brands need to know that they probably don't? Because my perspective is, and we were talking about this before we hit record, I think most brands in the 10 million to 100, a couple hundred million, are just forgetting about PR. They're sleeping on it. It's not something they're fully leveraging. So what do we need to know about PR that we don't know right now?
And it's so funny because brands who have made it to that level, it is so easy for them to implement PR more than anything else, right? Because they have the traction, they have like all of the website assets. And, most of what I teach, like my founders are like way more beginner than that. So if they can do it, so can the other companies. I will say that traditionally we're taught, okay, well, if you want PR, you pay an agency. And it's so exorbitantly expensive. In New York, it's about five to 10 grand a month for 6 months, no guarantees and a minimum contract. So I understand that if you do play it that route, if you're a founder, you're looking at the ROI, you're like, maybe I should just pour this into ads, right?
60 grand, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. I don't know. When will I know? Yeah.
And so what I'm doing here is like, how can we disrupt that industry? Because here's the thing, if you keep paying an agency, the moment you stop paying them, they walk away with the relationships. So how can we break that mold and take it in-house? And so I think we're not really taught that as founders because again, it's been very gate kept. Very few people are learning how to take it in-house. But obviously after listening to this episode, we'll have some actionable tips. But PR is the only activity for me that out of all of your marketing, it checks all of the boxes. So it checks the boxes of traffic, right? It checks the boxes of SEO because you get those powerful backlinks, from a high domain authority website. And then it also gives you that trust, which if you, all three things, it's very hard to get with social media or ads alone. And my favorite thing is like, I always say it's not about one or the other. It's about how can you leverage your time? Because if you can get onto one gift guide, then you can repost that onto your social media. You can repurpose that for an ad as seen in. And that's to me a way more powerful way to do your content.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that last part really quickly, it's something we've done for years and years, and it's nothing new. But a few of our clients, one that's an automotive client and one that was a skincare client, we would take clips, for when they were on ABC or Fox News or something, take those clips, and now you can run those in paid ads. You can put those on product detail pages. You can really lean into some of those press releases in a major way. And yeah, another one of my favorite definitions for marketing is really the transfer of confidence or the transfer of trust. As the brand, I have total confidence in my product, but you as the shopper, as the prospect, don't have confidence. So marketing is just that transfer of confidence. And I think you could argue that the few things that do that faster or better than PR. And so, yeah, I just think it's a missed opportunity and something that we all need to lean into. I think one of the misconceptions I had years ago was, well, if you want PR, yeah, you either talk to massive agency and pay through the nose and hope, or you just wait. You just wait and hope somebody reaches out to you, right? Hope that a reporter reaches out to you, but really the news cycle is 24/7 now. It has been that way for quite some time. So news outlets are kind of desperate for stories, right? Like they're looking for angles, they're looking for content. And so if you package this correctly and you approach the right people, it's probably not that hard, right?
No, it's really not. I mean, we have hundreds of founders who are literally solopreneurs doing this. And so imagine if you had the scale and the resources of like your audience, how much further they can go. So, I will say that, because the PR industry has gate kept it, made it seem like, well, we cannot do our own PR. When in reality, journalists want to interview indie brands. They want to interview not just the Unilevers of the world, because put it this way, if they were only featuring Fortune 1000 companies, they would lose their credibility very quickly. Right? They need to feature new brands. That's how they maintain their journalism integrity. So you're actually doing them a favor. And I will say that with the news cycle ramping up more ferociously than ever, they are churning out these stories like no other. I actually have a lot of journalists who write gift guides coming into my program to teach my students. And they all say like, Q4, we are working overtime. Like I am tasked with writing one gift guide per day. And that's one journalist. And if one gift guide has 10 products, you can just do the math on that. Right. So like there's no better way, especially in Q4, to capitalize on the fact that they're monitoring their inboxes like a hawk. And it's your time to put your name in the hat. You just need to know what to say and who to say it to. And so my whole ethos is like, yes, PR is painted as this complex thing that you need privilege and access to pay for. But how do I make it accessible? I make it accessible by really making it simple. And PR is really at its core writing a good pitch and sending it to the right person. That's it. And if you can put the two and two together, you can repeat it as a system in your business where you monitor the inbox, where you're sending it from your inbox. And that way you don't need to like depend on someone else, because then you own the relationships.
So we're getting close to, we're in Q4. Holiday shopping is about to ramp up as we're recording this. So let's talk gift guides really quickly. You mentioned that now a couple of times. It's a really popular thing for the media to create. It's a great way for them to drive traffic to their platforms, and everybody loves gift guides. We're all looking for ideas. So I'm an e-commerce brand. Let's say that I sell apparel. How should I approach this? What am I saying and who am I saying it to try to get my product featured in a gift guide?
Yeah. So I will say, like with any physical product, pitch, you're always going to have your gift guide, which is more product focused. And you have your evergreen angles about, like larger trends that maybe positions you as a founder, right? So we have someone who is in our program who makes apparel. And so she got interviewed in Vogue, and it's about like the future of sustainable fashion. Now she can still take her same company, take one product and then repurpose it for a gift guide. So those two angles simultaneously will always exist. But at the time of recording, like you said, Q4 is really about kind of those product roundups, get on a list, link it back to your website. So when I think about gift guides, it's really important for you to first figure out, okay, out of all the products that I have, if you have more than one, right, which one is the best fit for this season? Here's the thing. You don't want to send an order form to the journalist. You don't want to sell to the journalist. You want to solve a very quick problem for them, which is
Mm.
I'm compiling something for various gift guide categories. How is this going to fit? So, for example, the main gift guide categories are gifts for him, gifts for her, gifts for mom, gifts for dad, gifts for kids, gifts for like all of the ones that you read, right? There's also budget friendly gifts, stocking stuffers, travel gifts. Like I could go on and on and on. And so knowing that there's so many different buckets, it's your job to first figure out, okay, which of my products fits in that bucket? Is it a luxury item? Is it a stocking stuffer? Is it good for travel? Right? Do you have any winter bundles for skincare? If you make apparels, what's really good for this cold weather season? So pitching with the season is the number one key to getting featured because that way you're constantly refreshing your pitch so that you're not pitching sweatpants in the summer. That's the number one thing.
Yeah, it's really great, and I love the way you position that because really good marketing and what we're doing, whether it's with our ads, our product detail pages, is we're helping someone solve a problem or we're helping them take advantage of an opportunity. Right?
Yeah.
It's aspirational. You can look great, feel great in these clothes, or we're solving this problem you may be facing. Same is true when you're reaching out to a reporter. Right? It's just that the problem you're solving is not the product delivering its benefit. It's they need content. They need good recommendations. They need something they can plug into that gifts for him, gifts for her, gifts for kids, gifts
Yep.
for, stocking stuffers, whatever. And so you've got to kind of package it in that way. So totally makes sense. So I'm selling apparel. I then I guess first begin to think about, okay, who is this a good gift for? And then from that, I start to craft my message.
Yeah. So I love what you said about your marketing pitch, which we're so good at as founders, is fundamentally different than your pitch to the media.
Yeah.
Why? Because the journalist is not ever going to buy from you. So you have to take a different frame of mind. I always say you got to take off your marketing hat and stop talking about the benefits and features and start talking about the season and who it's good for. So if you can do that, then it becomes so much easier because what we don't want is for you to pitch a journalist with your order form and benefits and they say, well, we have an entire ads department who will be happy to take your money.
Exactly.
Right? We don't want that. So how do we repurpose that pitch? And it's not
you pitch
that
this
hard.
incorrectly and you're getting sent to the ad department.
Exactly. They're happy to take your money. Yeah. So we're not talking about benefits and features. Yes, we will in the pitch, but you're not leading with that. You're leading with the insight, the season, the problem, the trend. For example, like remember the show White Lotus on HBO?
I've heard of it. Yeah, I've never seen it.
So any of these like pop culture things, right? A great way to pitch. Like, we have a swimwear founder and it was like the pitch I wrote for her was how to pick the best swimsuit for your White Lotus Italian vacation. And, people are going to Taylor Swift concerts. So if you make something that would be perfect for that, it's like top 10 accessories for your next Taylor Swift concert. Like, do you see where I'm getting at? It's like you're leading with the trend, the season. And so it's still your product. So that's like the biggest thing that you need to do. And then I have my CPR framework, which is my own framework that I came up with from pitching and being rejected thousands of times. I picked up on a pattern. How do I get that person who doesn't know who the hell I am to say, yes, tell me more? And the pitch, whether it's written or verbal, usually has these three components. So C stands for credibility. P stands for point of view. R stands for relevance. And when you put that in a pitch, it's really solid. So let's bring it. Let's break it down. Right?
And you lead with credibility because I guess, I don't want to get ahead of you, but why do you lead with credibility?
So I actually don't lead with credibility. That's just the way to remember it phonetically. I actually do a reverse. So I actually start with the relevance. Why? Because you want to grab their attention at the get-go. And what is news if it's not relevant? So the beginning of your pitch should say something like, as your readers are looking for cold weather skin solutions this December. Do you see how that's relevance?
Totally.
As busy moms are looking for back to school pencil cases, right? So that's the relevance piece. And then you go, so the point of view in CPR is usually 3 bullet points. Why? Because it makes the email look better and it doesn't turn them off with a bunch of text. So it's usually three insights, 3 do's and don'ts, 3 ways that your product solves that problem better than anyone else. 3 unique points, right? And then you conclude with very simple credibility, which is like, I'm a mom and I figured this out and now we've scaled our business and customers love us because of X, Y, Z, or we've been featured. And you don't have to be featured, but it's really the least important part. And then you conclude with like, I'm happy to, send over some more, high res photos. What I like to do is include a URL instead of like putting high resolution photos that's going to cause spam. I say put one normal photo, but then have the rest be a URL that links to other things, right? Like how they can find out more. If you're pitching a gift guide, it's very important. Three things: your subject line, right? Your subject line is what gets open or not open. So your subject line needs to read like almost like an article title. So instead of saying, socks brand pitch winter gift guide, that means absolutely nothing. It
Mm-hmm.
needs to read like why this eco-friendly Australian sheep wool sock is perfect for stocking stuffer or whatever that is, right? Like
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and then you go into the CPR method. And so that's kind of the general structure of how it is. When you're talking about your product, when you start with the relevance and you introduce why your product is solving that seasonal problem, you always want to put in where it's available. Is it at Marshall's? Is it on Amazon? Is it only on your website? And you want to put the price point immediately. And then you want to put where it ships to. So all of those things is going to help the journalist decide where and when to put it, right? So that's like a non-negotiable when you're trying to pitch for a gift guide, is having those specifics.
Super interesting. And really, as I'm listening to this and trying to imagine this email in my mind, if I'm a reporter and you've done this properly, I could almost take exactly what you emailed me and just run with that. Like
Mm-hmm.
you've essentially done all the hard work for me. Maybe I want to reach out and kind of confirm things or but you've like done most of the heavy lifting for me.
That's exactly it. Look, this is an unnatural act. So don't feel like, oh, why didn't I? It's like, we're not taught this, right? So
Mm.
don't feel bad that you haven't done this. It's just that the industry has gate kept it from us. And so, we actually had people use the CPR method to get into Oprah's favorite things, right? BuzzFeed, Vogue, Allure, and even use it to get into retailers and wholesalers. So the CPR pitch is a way to have a value driven conversation with someone who has never heard of you. And how do you get them to quickly respond? One thing I will say is that the CPR pitch is not writing the article for them. So you
Mm.
don't like leave that to the journalist. The journalist knows what their editorial calendar is and where to fit your story. So don't think that you're like writing this whole article in a hat. No, you're just simply offering a point of view that's perfect for this season. And the whole point of the pitch is to get them to respond. Yes, I would like more information. No, this is not a good fit for me. And so that takes away the pressure of everything. It just has a very simple goal, and just don't overthink it.
Got it. And it's really valuable because yeah, we may be tempted to like put on our writer hat and like I gotta write the intro to the article in the mid, like that's not your job. Your job is to make this very clear, very easy to understand, your credibility, your point of view, and the relevancy, and kind of working all that in. So totally makes sense. How do you recommend? So we've got our copy for the product on our product detail pages and things like that. How are you modifying that copy to fit bullet points that you're sending in this email?
So the bullet points are a little bit more subjective, right? So it could be point of view on, so if you make something that's completely unique. So I'll give you an example. We have someone who in Canada works with Aboriginal Native women tribes, and they make beaver fur hand warmers. So it's from beaver fur, and means that you keep it for life. It's not those like ones that you throw away, right? So because it's really unique, the point of view, the three bullet points are like why the beaver fur solution is better than the traditional ones that you get at your ski shop, right? One, it's sustainable. Two, it lasts long. Like that's what I mean by the point of view.
Hmm. That's so great. What can we expect then? So if you craft this email properly, how many of these do we need to send out to hopefully get featured somewhere? Like what are you seeing in terms of success rate, and how much time do we need to put into this to make it work?
Yeah, I mean, I've had people get a response within 24 hours, right?
Hmm.
So I think when you first start, it's really about a volume game. So you might like pitch to a wide variety of journalists, but then you always want to highlight like your top 15 to 20 outlets that you know will move the needle for you, whether it's a refinery or a pop sugar or even like outdoor sporting goods. So I always say like first you cast a wide net, but then for those like 10 to 15 journalists, you really want to build a personal relationship by just personalizing the first line of the email. So it might be something like, I loved your coverage last year in Sporting Good magazine about the best fly fishing gear for dads. Are you doing it for this year? So you see how it like shows them that you actually read their article. And for those 15 journalists, you really want to cultivate a relationship by engaging with their content because they're writers too. So comment on their LinkedIn, comment on their Instagram, like use social media and say, I loved your article, right? Like stroke their ego a little bit. And so that's going to help you build that relationship and kind of like a customer where you increase the touch points and they get familiar with you because they're seeing your name and your brand.
How are we finding these contacts? Or we're building our list of top 10 to 15 media outlets that will move the needle for us. How are we finding these contacts? Or we're building our list of top 10 to 15 media outlets that will move the needle for us. How are we finding these contacts? Or we're building our list of top 10 to 15 media outlets that will move the needle for us. How are we finding these contacts? Or we're building our list of top 10 to 15 How
Yeah.
would you recommend we do that? Because we may all be tempted to like reach out to Fox News or CNN or something like that, but
Yeah.
that's probably not the place to start, right?
Yeah.
How do we build that list, and then yeah, walk us through that.
So that's a really good question. So remember, I said PR is very simple. It's writing a good pitch and sending it to the right person. So with the CPR method, we talked about how to write a pitch. Now let's move on to who do we send it to? It's not going to be info@buzzfeed.com or media at Forbes because it's going to go into an internet black hole. It's also not going to be the editor in chief of Vogue because they're
Right.
busy doing their speaking tour. So you want to find out who is that specific writer who
Mm-hmm.
writes your beat or industry topic. Is it the health and wellness reporter? Is it the sustainability person? Is it the person that covers tech gadgets? So for a lot of gift guides, you're going to look for someone that covers your industry and also the commerce or shopping writer. Those are the people who are responsible for conglomerating those shopping guides and product lists. So that's who you want to look for. Now, in my program, we have a database of 100,000 journalists across every industry, but you can start to do it in your own way and start to compile your own media list. And you can do it very simply by typing into the Google search bar, Google News Alert. And Google will create an alert where any digital article that's being published will be sent to your inbox. And you can click on that article that's about your industry and copy and paste their name and email, which is public information, by the way, and start to fill it into an ever expanding Excel spreadsheet. So that's kind of your own way of doing it. You can also sign up for a service called Haro, which is bought by another company now, but you can type in HARO, help a reporter out. And every day it pings you with like the 200 or 300 inquiries for journalists wanting to interview a specific person. And if you fit the bill, then use the CPR method to reply. We had someone just using Haro and she got onto 7 different pieces of media like Wall Street Journal and Pop Sugar this year alone.
Wow.
And then there's also hashtags you can follow. So on LinkedIn and Instagram, you can follow the hashtag journal request. And so that is when journalists are looking for a specific person to interview. So these are kind of all the grassroots way that you can start to auto populate that. But you want to have a good size media list, right? You want to have at least
Right.
50 journalists, and then out of those 50, your top 15 that'll really move the needle for you.
Yeah, it's really great because it is a numbers game, right? You can't expect to reach out to 2 media outlets or 2 reporters and get the ball rolling. It is a numbers game, and so play accordingly. We talked about gift giving guides, and I love that angle. But you also talked about founder stories. I think that's interesting. I also want to talk about that in a minute. I want to talk about product launches because that's something our bigger brands, they're always launching new products or new lines of products. So I've got my hair care, now I'm launching my sun care, now I'm launching oral care or something like that. So how do you recommend approaching this? I'm sure it's a lot of the same frameworks and stuff, but how do I approach this if it's a new product launch?
Yeah. So the way I think about product launches is that it's doing PR, but with a specific time sensitive call to action. So for the journalist, you're saying, I am launching this on this date. And so what you want to do is you want to create a very well written press release. And you can see all the lists of my press releases on gloriachildpr.com/services. There's a very methodical way of writing it, but you always want to say that you're like the first to do something, right? Because that's newsworthy.
Mm-hmm.
So you might not be the first to do X, Y, and Z, but you might be the first to do X, Y, and Z in this way. So see how you can wordsmith it so that it's really punchy at the top. And so, for example, I worked with, a 7-figure electric flosser company, and they're not the first electric flosser, but they're the first to use X, Y, Z materials to guarantee a full mouth clean in under 60 seconds. And you see how that's really the headline and the subheadline. So I like press releases, but I don't like it when people are just putting out press releases every other week. It's kind of a waste of money. See how you can couple 2 or 3 different things. Maybe you have a product launch and then you also have a new board member. Or maybe you won an award and then you're giving back to charity or whatever that is, right? And the worst thing I think, and we're not really taught this, is we're just taught, oh, well, issue a press release and just hope and pray that someone will respond. And it just doesn't work that way. I actually use press releases as an incentive, kind of like a bait, if you will, to get the journalist to respond in X amount of days. So instead of just putting the press release on the wire, you're writing an email using the CPR method and saying, hey, we know that you cover consumer electronics. Like we've invented this really cool dental tool, especially as we get into like, health and wellness season for the whole family to enjoy. Dental health is linked to heart diseases and brain health. And there's growing number of research to say that it's really non-negotiable. That's why we've made it very easy in under 60 seconds for anyone to clean their teeth. We also made it so that it's good for people who have dexterity issues, kind of go into that. We are going live with the press release announcement in 2 weeks or 7 days. So let me know if you'd be interested in learning more. I've attached the draft of the press release below. I'm happy to chat. So do you see how that's a stronger call to action? You're basically using your launch as a conversation starter. So you want to do that before you just put the press release live onto the newswire. And so for all of my clients, I do this kind of 2-step process with them.
So that lets them know, hey, this is going to happen. Almost some kind of credibility mixed in there that this is going live in 1 week or 2 weeks.
Yeah,
But
I'm
then
going
it
live with or
also,
without you. Yeah.
yeah, right. But then this also makes them say, okay, well, I'd kind of rather be first, or I want to be early in the game, not picking it up once it hits the wire type of thing.
Yeah. I got my client like Forbes within 1 week because they just wanted to
Wow.
be the first, to break it. But you have to make it exciting for them, right? So that's where the pitch writing comes in. So I think this is kind of one of the things that a lot of people aren't taught. They're just like, publish a press release, but you are wasting on a very precious opportunity, which is that time sensitive call to action.
Super smart. So are you always kind of wrapping multiple things into one press release, or sometimes is it just a product launch?
So this is a very good question. I would say it's somewhat subjective. It depends on the newsworthiness of the announcement, if you will, right? So like if you're a startup and you secured funding, like that's important, right? Because every milestone on Google, like you want to put it there as a part of your journey for your
Totally.
investors. But if it's something like, you have a new board member maybe, and then you're also like partnering with a charity, like you could couple that into one. And there is a way to write it. So I will say if you have multiple things you want to announce, get out a piece of paper and write in the hierarchy of what is the most important, and then see how you can couple it into one press release. Because in the press release, I've written many like funding announcements about how they've secured, but then in the body of the press release, we're saying, by Q4 of next year, we plan to release X, Y, and Z features. So do you see it's kind of like a look ahead date to get people excited?
Yeah, totally cool. Totally cool. Now, what about if you kind of talked about founder stories, and I know this would apply if it's a new company, you're solving a new problem type of thing, but there's probably something to be said here, even if you're a little bit established, right? How can you kind of take that founder story angle and turn that into a press release?
So the founder story is important, and you can put it even in your gift guide pitch, but it needs to be under 2 sentences. So like if you're pitching, yes, if you have an interesting founder story, put it in there, right? If it's 1 or 2 sentences. Now in your press release, I usually put it in like the about section of the press release, like on the bottom, like how was it founded? Or maybe the last paragraph, right? Like founded by 2 research chemists, right? Or whatever that is. If you're making a skincare product, I wouldn't say that is the most important part, because your press release is not your autobiography. It's a very time specific snapshot of something that you're announcing. So it's the purpose of the press release is not to announce your story. So the story will go into the press release, but you're not going to lead with that. The
Got it.
headline of the press release, and I do this on my VIP day, but the headline is the what, and the subheadline is the how. So that's how you can kind of start to figure out like what is the framework of what you're trying to say.
So good. So I love the example of the oral care product. You talked about the electronic flosser. Other examples that you can talk about, because I just think as someone hears an example, it kind of triggers additional thoughts.
Yeah. So for press releases, I've written a lot for products that are white labeled. So we have someone who does like she makes like a 24 karat facial massager tool that also is like solar charge, right?
Yeah.
It's not her proprietary product, but then she like white labels and stuff. So in our press release, we couldn't say that she was the first to do this because it's not her invention, but she is the first Filipina owned skincare brand. right? Or the first
Nice.
one. So it's like, how can you keep wordsmithing that to say that like that you're the first? And let's be honest, like unless it's like a groundbreaking invention, you're not going to be the first. But
Not gonna be the first
that's
anyway, right? Yeah.
yeah, everything is a remix, but then you still want to keep just finessing that headline and the subheadline to make it super concise and specific, so that right out of the bat we know that it's newsworthy because you are the first or the only to solve this problem, maybe for this specific demographic.
I know from a career in sales and sales related things that it's very rare to send one email and then stuff just happens, right? One email and now the reporter is jumping all over themselves to try to get you on and interviewed and stuff. How do we follow up, and how much should we follow up after we send that email?
Yeah, I mean, follow up is absolutely key because remember, they're getting a lot of emails and they just need to be reminded. And I think a lot of times, because again, this is an unnatural act, a lot of founders who are doing incredible things, they send that first email and they go run and hide in the bathroom. And so the journalist is not like monitoring, like, oh, this person followed up with me. How dare they, right? Like they actually
Right, totally.
depend on you to follow up. And it's really just about top of mind. But I will give you one tip is that before you send out any emails, please install an email tracking device so you know if it's being open or not. So then you don't have to make a drama in your head about, oh, this journalist hates me. It's like, well, no, they actually just never open it because it could be a deliverability issue. It could be an out of office issue. So let's solve for the right problem. Now, if the email tracker is telling you that they're opening it multiple times, it means that they like the story. They just don't have a place for it right now in their editorial calendar. But journalists, what they do is they have a very meticulous way of filing and foldering their inboxes so that anytime that they're tasked with something, they're going to go back and type that keyword. So that's why I always say, like, you have to pitch early and often so that you're at least in the running when they do search back into their inbox. Now, if they are multiple times, like I'm just working with someone who makes a real kids kitchen for children. It's like a beautifully designed, like toy, like real kitchen, but for kids.
Wow.
And she said that the pitch that we wrote for her got opened like 16 times or something like that, right? So it means that the journalist like really likes it. And so that's when you go in and you really engage with the person's content. And so it might be commenting on an Instagram post. It might be resharing one of their stories. It's kind of like how you would nurture a lead when you know that it's kind of a hot lead. It's the same way. You're building a relationship with that journalist.
Totally makes sense. So as we're looking to kind of leverage our time, whether we're the ones executing this plan or we've got a team member that's doing it for us, what are some tools that we can use that makes this process easier?
Yeah. So the email tracking device, right? I like Chrome because I've heard that Outlook doesn't have the best deliverability. So I like Chrome and I like to schedule send my emails in a campaign. I use mailtrack.io, which is like, okay, it's like, middle of the road. It's not too expensive. And it just gives you data on whether or not it's been open. Obviously, the Google News alert is really important, right? You want to have that. One tip is that if you do want to take this in-house, and for a lot of your audience, they do have a team, it's really helpful to give your PR person, it could be an intern or a marketing assistant, like the password to an email that's different from your customer service emails. So it could be like a media ad or a team ad or just something. And then they can kind of own that inbox and just kind of keep that separate.
Super smart. Super smart. Well, Gloria, this has been fantastic. Any final tips? I want to allow people to connect with you, through socials. And I know you've got a course and some other great stuff. But any final tips or anything that you wanted to chat about that we didn't related to PR?
So I think we all know this, but like everything you want is on the other side of the send button. And so we pour so
Yes.
much money in social media and ads, and there is room for that, right? But why not just like reallocate a little bit of that to do something that has a crazy potential upside?
Yeah.
So it's really about working smarter and not harder. And here's the thing, your business needs you to be its number one advocate. I cannot tell you how many founders come to me and join my program after they paid $40,000 for an agency. So it's not about not working with an agency, but it's about knowing how the process works so that if something happens that they don't deliver, then you are not stuck at square one with no contacts. Because at the end of the day, it's about building those contacts with the journalist. And so my program gives you the database, it gives you what to say, and then you can kind of repeat it. So you can find me on Instagram. I'm at Gloria Chou PR, Gloria CHOU PR. And I have a free masterclass that actually outlines word for word from subject line down to the last sentence, a pitch I wrote in the CPR method that got someone featured like 15 times. And you can watch that for free at gloriachou.com pr.com/masterclass. And if you DM me on Instagram the word pitch, I will give you a pitching freebie so that you can get started.
Nice. And then did I hear, are you on LinkedIn as well?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn as well. I'm mainly on Instagram. That's kind of
Got
where
it.
you can get the fastest response, but I also check my LinkedIn. Yes.
Got it. So check out Instagram for sure. And yeah, it's so true, right? You don't get what you don't ask for. And in life, you don't get necessarily what you deserve. You get what you negotiate and you get what you actively pursue. And so, yeah, I'm fired up, man. I'm excited about PR. Like I said, I think this is a missing piece that great brands need to leverage. It will make other efforts better. You can use it to leverage your ads, and you can use it to make clients stickier. And there's so many ways you can use this. And so, Gloria, love this content. Thank you so much. We'll link to everything in the show notes, but go check it out. So before you hire a PR firm, talk to Gloria first. And hey, I think it makes sense. Like, send someone through the free masterclass, do kind of the paid class or whatever. That's probably better than paying for a high priced firm for most brands. So, Gloria, thank you so much. This was fantastic.
Thanks.
Awesome. And thank you for tuning in. We'd love to hear from you. What would you like to hear more of on the show? If you have not done so, please leave that review on iTunes. And with that, until next time, thank you for listening.